Alright, so let's take a look at how to set up a channel. Now I've got the control program open here, and I've got it attached to the soundboard through a cable, and so you can see that as I speak on channel 16, that the audio is being shown here on the right hand side. The first thing you need to do whenever you're setting up a channel is bring it up to 0 on the slider, to unity gain. And you want to begin with all of your channels that way because that makes it common all the way across for the sliders. And then you want to adjust the gain to be appropriate to 0 on the slider. So the slider is there to make fine artistic adjustments during the course of the service. So generally you would start with the gain down at 0. But I can't really do that because then you won't hear me anymore. So you start with the gain at 0, bring the slider to 0, or sorry, not gain not to 0, but to negative all the way to the bottom. 0 is unity gain, which is the point at which no additional boost is being added or subtracted away from the sound. And so you want for this to be at 0 and this to be at absolute bottom. Then raise the gain until it's an appropriate level in the main speakers. That's the way that you always want to start. Once, of course, you've set up your input. So for this particular microphone, it's a large diaphragm condenser mic, and so it needs phantom power. So if I didn't have phantom power selected, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. But if I turn that back on, suddenly you can hear me again. I've got the polarity reversed. And that is something that you can do to see if it makes any difference to the sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see it sounds much better with the polarity unreversed. You can link two channels together in stereo. You can adjust your gain. I've got it set to plus 20 right now. And then you can adjust your USB trim. Right now I've got the channel source set as the mic or line input. But if I had the soundboard connected to the computer via USB and was modifying the sound via a DAW, a DAW, or a digital audio workstation such as PreSonus Studio One or Cubase or Pro Tools, then you could have it be selecting the channel source as that USB signal. So it would come into the soundboard, go into the computer, be modified by the computer, then come back to the soundboard and be sent to the main speakers. But of course, if I did that right now, you wouldn't hear anything because I don't have the actual soundboard plugged in via USB, only by Cat5 cable, which means that I can control it, but it's not passing audio signals back and forth. So now let's take a look at some of the things that we can do to adjust and modify the sound. First of all, I can pan and left, and that way you get an audio signal that is sent in stereo to one side or to the other side. So if you can hear the difference of headphones, that's the difference that makes. Now I'm going to come up to the top of my channel and work my way down. So I'm going to start here with our noise gate, and I'm going to right click to turn it on. So now the noise gate is engaged. You can see the little blue circle around it, and it is on. I'm going to click on it to go to the noise gate setting for that channel, and I'm going to raise the threshold. Now you can see here the green line indicates what is happening with my audio signal. And so if there are any low sounds, if I stop talking and there's still sound coming through, you can see there's a little bit of green line happening there even when I'm not talking at all. So I'm going to raise this threshold up to -70. And now you can see the green line still going on a little bit, but the red line coming down. And so what that represents is that there is some noise coming through the channel. And so I'm going to raise this up a little bit higher to about -65. And that is going to mean that when I'm not talking, but there is still audio signal coming through the channel, automatic gain reduction is going to drown out that noise and make sure that it's not heard. So I'm going to stop talking now. And you can hear that as soon as I start talking again, my mic is back on. But while I'm not talking, it suppresses what's happening there. So little sounds still come through, big sounds come through, but background noise doesn't. And so that's the point of a noise gate. And the idea here is, let's say you've got a kitchen and a dining room, and you have a pet. And so you put a little gate that is 1 foot high between the two rooms. Well, if it's a wiener dog with very short legs, there's no way he's going to get over that 1 foot gate. But let's say that you've got a black lab, and he can easily get over that 1 foot gate. Well, then you still need a 2 foot gate. But let's say there's little kids that you don't want to get through, and they can get over that 2 foot gate. You put in a 3 foot gate. So however high you raise the threshold, the more you're going to limit what can pass by. And you want the adults to be able to get through no matter what. But you may want to just limit wiener dogs, you may want to limit black labs, or you may want to limit little kids. And so the more you raise the threshold, the more it's going to limit what can get through. There are other controls here, but I'm going to leave it for other videos to explain that to you if you want more detail about what these means. I'm really not in a position to speak with much authority on that. Let's move over to our equalization. Now, equalization is a method of shaping the sound to make it more pleasant. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on our low-cut filter. And you can see this shape come here that represents the sound. So the higher, the louder, the lower, the quieter. The more to the right, the higher in pitch. The more to the left, the lower in pitch. So really low sounds are going to be down here. Really high sounds are going to be up here. Really loud is up here, and really quiet is down here. So you've got a four-way grid that shows you how you can shape the sound with EQ to modify it in a way that's appropriate. And I'm going to turn on the real-time analyzer, which means that as I talk, you're actually going to see a representation of what's happening here. And I can also put on the spectrum analyzer, which can show you this information in a different way. And so now you can see anywhere that there's red is an area where there is a lot of signal. Anywhere that there's green is some signal. Anywhere that there's blue is a very little amount of signal. And anywhere it's black, no signal at all. And so you can see that as I'm talking, there is a pattern here to where the sounds are where the sounds are loudest. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my low-cut filter and I'm going to raise it up until it starts to make a difference in the sound. Now you can hear that there's something different happening with the sound, whereas if I draw it down, now my voice has a little bit more bass, bottom end, and you can see a little bit of bass happening here, but there's not a whole lot of signal there. And so if I just bleed off a little bit of that, it's going to clean up the sound a little bit, and some of the noise that's going on that doesn't really communicate well, that doesn't serve to allow my singing voice or my speaking voice to be clearly understood, we're going to clean some of that up, and so that there's more room for someone else to step into that space. So if the bass is playing, now there's more frequency that is unimpeded by anything else, and you can hear the bass more clearly. And so what we're going to do is both look for ways to improve sounds that are particularly good, limit sounds that are particularly bad, and then artistically shape the sound in such a way that it produces a result that we want. So now I'm going to take my first channel here that's a bell curve, and I'm going to raise this right up to the top, and I'm going to sweep along and look for a place where the sound is unusual. So you see right here where all of that audio signal is there. You can really hear the difference when I start to move in there, whereas over here it doesn't make much of a difference at all. But in here you can begin to hear it. And if I bring it over here, you're going to be able to hear it even more, and we're going to get to the place where that makes a difference. It is going to make a difference as soon as I turn the EQ on and do that same thing again. Now you can actually hear the difference that I was talking about just a minute ago. So I come over here, and you can hear how different the sound is over here. So you see the red little bits in here, and then over here again, I've really boosted a signal that there's a lot of signal there. And so the question that we first need to ask is, where are the points in this spectrum where the sound sounds really good and clear, and where are the points where the sound sounds really bad and muddled and mucky. And some of the points in here where it's hottest, if I raise that up too high, it sounds brittle or tinny or boomy or something like that. There are a number of words that we use to describe particular frequencies and where they fall in the voice. So this doesn't sound very good, but it's far too much to the right for the first channel. So I'm going to bring the first band back down here, and instead I'm going to raise up the second channel and find the place where the sound is worst. So that is very clear but unpleasant. That's not a good sound. Furthermore, I'm going to adjust the quality a little bit. So you see I made it wider there. The cone that was there, I changed it from a 2 to a 1. Now I'm changing it back to a 2. And so I'm finding a way to narrow the amount of bandwidth that's affected by what I'm doing here. So I'm tightening it up, and so I can find the very spot where there's a problem, and probably right there. You can see that there's a lot of signal in there, and it's not all that pleasant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down a little bit, and that cleans up the sound. Some of that really loud and not necessarily pleasant audio has now been wiped out. Some of this audio down here that adds a little bit of bass boom, I'm going to raise that up just a little bit and change the quality to 1 so that it's a bit of a wider amount that it's taking. So you can see now it's a very wide bell curve. And I'm going to raise it up just a little bit to give a little bit of bass boost, because that kind of works for my voice. Now I'm going to come up here to 3, and I'm going to find a place where the audio sounds particularly good or particularly bad. And right there, that really enhances the clarity of my voice. So I'm going to raise that up just a little bit. And then with the fourth channel, this is set to a shelf. And so these are bell curves, and so they're even on either side, and they come to a point in the middle. With the shelf, the closer I get to the right-hand side, the less difference it makes. If I come back here, it's going to take a really wide swath out of the audio or add that really wide swath in. So this is moving left and right is the point at which that difference starts to be made, and I can make that difference very close to the edge, or I can make that difference very far from the edge. Do you hear the difference there? And so when I add a lot of high end in, what essentially you're going to feel is that I'm closer to the mic. It feels like I'm really close to the mic, and now it feels as if I'm walking away from the mic. Now I'm far away from the mic, way in the background. It's muggy and indistinct, but now I'm coming closer. I'm getting right up to the mic, and here I am. Do you hear how much more present it sounds? And it's very bright and crisp. That's what we hear when somebody is right next to us. These are the frequencies that as somebody walks away and gets distant from us, are the first to be muffled by the room and to fade out with the distance. And so naturally we hear someone with a boost to their high EQ as being closer, more present, more intimate. And so what you want to do is when you're doing vocals, you want for the lead vocals to be boosted significantly in the high end, which gives the impression of them being close and present and what you're going to pay attention to. Whoever is singing background vocals, you want to drop their high EQ, so it's like they've taken a step back, leaving room for whoever is at the forefront to speak most clearly. Now, the majority of what they sing is still going to come through, but it's not going to be quite as bright and present as the lead vocalist. And so it's going to, by shaping the sound in this way, artificially emphasize the person who is doing the leading. And that's really what we want. We want to carve out space in the spectrum for the person who we want people to pay attention to be the person who people naturally pay attention to. So the background singer's voice may sound better if they're bright and lively and all the rest of that. But they may also be drawing attention away from the person that we actually want to be in the mix most strongly. And so we're not looking just to make people's voices as good as they can be. We're looking to specifically shape the sound in such a way that it makes sense for who is doing the leading and who is doing the supporting. You want your supporting people to be more in the background and less apparent. Not very much. You don't want to do a huge drop here. You don't want to do a massive change here. You know, if you've actually got somebody up this much, it's going to sound brittle and tinny, and you're going to risk feedback. That's not the point here. You want to make a subtle change that just gives a slight impression of a particular person being more present. So these middle ones, you want to do slight boosts and slight dips, finding places where it makes sense to do that. Down here, you want to cut out signal that isn't being used so that the ear is less confused and can pay attention to the instruments that have that nice low bass, the drums and the bass. And up here, you want to brighten it in such a way that the lead vocals can come through. And so for instruments, depending on the instrument, your lead guitar, an electric guitar, you might want to have nice and bright so that it can cut through and have nice high end. An acoustic guitar, you might want to drop the high end a little bit in order to have it be a bit more in the background with the other vocalists. And that way it's not interfering with the ability of the lead vocals to cut through. So it's both an attempt to limit bad sounds and an attempt to shape creatively. And so you want to be thinking about both things at the same time. Now we're going to come over to the compression, and we are going to turn on the compressor, and right away you can hear that the sound is a little bit more present and bright. And then I'm going to set the vocal presets, and so I'm going to click OK, and now we have our vocal compression on. And so you can hear that my sound is a little bit beefier, a little bit more moved to the mid, and a little stronger. It's easier to understand me when I've got the compressor turned on, and that is going to be more pronounced if I'm singing. So now we've got our mic set up fairly well, and we've got, again, threshold to work with here, but the threshold here doesn't work in the same way as the threshold of the door for the gate. We're not putting something at the bottom, we're putting something at the top so that somebody has to duck. This time, let's say we're hanging mistletoe from the doorway, and someone who is normal height can walk right into the mistletoe, no problem. Maybe they find somebody to kiss on the way by, but they can get through. Somebody who is tall needs to duck to get under that mistletoe. And so with the compressor, what we're doing is we're causing the loudest sounds to duck to get in through the door. And so if I have a really loud sound, what's going to happen is that the compressor is going to limit that loud sound. Now I've turned the compressor up, I'm going to turn it down, and now when I talk really loudly, you're going to see that red bar start to come down from the top. And that's the gain reduction. That is the amount that the audio that is coming through is reduced, sort of pushing down its head to make sure that it doesn't get too loud. Now, if I bring that down even further, you're going to see a lot of gain reduction happen even just when I'm talking regularly. So the point of the compression is both to shape the sound in a pleasant way and to limit the sound's ability to get up to inappropriate levels, which is going to help for feedback. So if you've got your compression appropriately set, it's less likely that you're going to see feedback. Excuse me, I'm just taking a drink of water. And now I'm going to just hit vocal and OK, and that's going to reset it back to the standard settings for compression. So it's also got presets for kick drum, for snare, and for bass. Other instruments, you can probably, like an acoustic guitar, you could probably use something fairly close to the vocal or the bass, and it wouldn't make too much of a difference. But then you can fine-tune it and decide exactly how you want it. So now we're going to come to sends, and this is where we assign monitors. And so the first thing I'm going to do is bring up monitor number 1, and that is going to send to the stage, and now you can see that we've got a signal coming through the monitor. And let's say bus number 4 is our hearing assist system, so I'm going to bring some of that up. And then the third is our recording. So now, independent of what's happening with the main left-right, we've got additional signal going to other places. So I mixed in this much in the monitor, this much in the hearing assist system, and this much in the recording. And I can do that for every single channel. So I come over here and I select bus 1, and you can see how much I've got bus 1 here. And so I can put some of this in bus 1, and some of this in bus 1, and some of this in bus 1, and now I've got my mix for the monitor. And if I want more of myself in the monitor, I turn myself up. If I want less of myself in the monitor, I turn myself down. Furthermore, I can select where in the channel signal that is coming from. So I can say that I want it to come straight from the input. So not passing through the equalization, not affected by the fader, but straight from the input. I want the rawest signal that I can get going through the monitor that hasn't been modified in any way for the main speakers. I don't want those modifications to appear in my mix. And so by selecting input for bus 1, I'm getting a very raw sound. Or I can say that I want the equalization settings that I put in place on that channel to also apply to the monitor. So the EQ settings that we just went through and did, should these EQ settings apply both to the main mix and the monitor mix, or only to the main mix? That's what we're selecting when we change what's happening here with the sends. Now I can come over here to effects, and I can look at the effect here, which is a vintage room reverb. And so now I can say on each of these channels how much of that vintage room reverb I want. So here I want lots of the reverb, or not very much at all of the reverb, maybe just a little bit. So now you can hear that reverb happening in the back. Let's take a look at what our other effects are. Here we've got a hall reverb, a modulation delay, and a dimensional chorus. So let's find out what happens when we play around with each of those. So I'm just going to come up here to this, and I'm going to see here is that first reverb. Here is the second reverb. You can hear it sounds a little bit different, but similar sort of a thing. Here is the delay. So when I talk, you can hear the echo. The delay is the echo. The delay is the echo. And I'm going to turn that off, and it goes away. Now I'm going to bring up the chorus, and you're going to hear it's sort of a little bit more metallic sounding, a little bit more stronger in the mids. And so that's an interesting sound to put on a guitar to give it a more bright presence, but probably isn't very effective when we're talking about our spoken voice here. So I'm going to turn that right down. I'm going to give it a little bit of reverb, and I'm going to give it a little bit of delay. And now it feels like I'm talking in a big, boomy room. You can hear that echo bouncing around. And so the reverb, together with the delay, makes sort of a natural, hey, I'm in a canyon sort of a feel to it. And just a little bit of that might be a good thing for what's going on in your mix. So now I'm going to bring this back up to full, and you're going to really hear the effect of what's happening. But you notice that this is post-fader, so it's being affected right here. Sorry, I'm getting confused. I'm forgetting which set of dials I'm looking at. So I've clicked on main left right, and now I'm back to main left right, and I can affect the overall amount of signal. But if I click on FX1, then what this changes is the amount of effect in the signal path, not the overall volume level. And I just forgot that as I was going to go make changes, and I thought, oh, look how low my level is. But that wasn't my level, that was the amount of effects in it. So over here you've got bus 1, bus 2, bus 3, bus 4. So you can see there's bus 4 that I had put some in, and bus 5 there's some in. And so you can use these to mix, but don't forget that when you want to go back and do the main mix again, you have to select main, left, right. It's very easy to forget that, as I just proved. So now we're going to come back over here to meter, and you're going to see a number of things here. First of all, you're going to see in the analog inputs, channel 16, which is the channel that I'm talking into, you're going to see that going up and down. You're going to see it here in the monitor solo mix, and you're going to hear it in the main mix. So this is what is going to my headphones that I'm listening to. This is going to the main speakers. Over here, the Ultranet is a special system that you can buy to add to the XR18 soundboard systems, which allows people to mix their own monitors on stage. So that's an additional piece of equipment that we don't have here, but it shows you what would be going to that if you had it. Over here we've got our effect sends. You can see that there's a little bit of effect number 1 and a little bit of effect number 3 happening. And then here's the effects returns, seeing what's coming back into the mix. And here are my bus outputs. So on all these different channels, you can see exactly what's happening all the time. If you come over to the analog input, you can see exactly where your audio is coming in. So if you're confused as to which channel is currently coming through the main speakers, just come over to the meters and you'll be able to see really quickly. So that is how we set up a channel. And we're going to come back over here to the mixer view, and I'm using the mouse to scroll wheel down each of these because we really don't need them there. That was just for interest's sake. And again, I can adjust any of these using the scroll wheel and hovering over the thing that I want to adjust. So there's our 6 mix buses. There's our 4 effects buses. There is our noise gate. There is our equalization, and there is our compression. So here's limiting at the bottom, here's shaping the sound, here's limiting at the top. So everything is available right there in one view, and anything you click on right in here is going to take you to do some adjustments to it. Anything you mouse over and use the scroll wheel on here is going to make changes. Anything you click on here, it's going to take you to the place where you can make some changes there. And then anywhere that I click here is going to change the channel that I'm currently adjusting. I can solo the channel, which means that nothing else is going to come through. I can mute the channel, which means that no signal gets through at all. All of that is available right there. Now I'm going to add this channel to mute group 3. And watch what happens when I click the button. You won't be able to hear me because that is mute group 3. So I've got mute group 1, which is those first 3 channels, which are all vocalists. And then I've got mute group 2, which is all of the instruments that I've got set up over here. And so by using mute groups, you can very quickly say who is live and who is not live just with those 4 buttons. Finally, we can add a DCA group. So I'm going to select DCA group 3, the same as the mute group that I've got here, and I'm going to click right here, and now that is on DCA 3. I'm going to select DCA 1, and I'm going to add each of these to DCA 1, and I'm going to add each of these to DCA 2. Now if I go to DCA 3, and I draw this down, you notice that my audio goes away when I draw this down. And that's going to happen for every channel that I've got selected for DC3A. So if I go to DCA1, which is all the vocals, and I draw it down a little bit, all of the vocals are going to change together as I'm making that adjustment. If I move it up, and the effects are really starting to drive me nuts a little bit, so I'm going to get rid of them. So DCA1, I'm boosting or dipping the level of all 3 vocals at the same time. DCA2, I'm boosting or dropping all of the instruments at the same time. DCA3, I'm bringing up the sound or dropping the sound of the only thing that's running through that DCA channel, which is the mic that I'm currently using. So by grouping together your DCA groups and your mute groups, here's all my instruments, all my vocals, so I can mute, unmute, or adjust all my vocals together. I can adjust or mute all my instruments together, and then whatever else I want to be muting or adjusting, I can do that here. And I'm just hitting 0 enter to override that back to 0 so that it makes no difference. So that is how we set up a channel. And then once we've done that, we can save the channel preset that I've just created. So now I'm coming into here and I'm going to say, oops, as long as I don't bump my microphone out of the way, I'm going to say that's my condenser mic preset, and I'm going to save that. And now if I want to load in, I simply go to channel 15 and I say load channel preset. I select my condenser mic preset, and instantly everything that I had over here is duplicated over here. So I can also do that by copying and then coming over to another channel and pasting. I'm going to select all so that everything goes over, but I can say maybe my configuration and input I don't want to be, but my gate, EQ, compressor, and sends out, I want all of that to paste over. So now you can see it didn't go to the 48. And actually on this one too, the inputs weren't affected by that, only all of these settings down here. So I'd still need to turn on phantom power and bring up the gain, but it's a good thing that those things aren't automatically put in, because if you use them inappropriately, it can actually do damage to equipment. So that's a good thing. But by either saving and then loading the channel preset or copying the channel preset, all of that stuff can be adjusted automatically in a moment. So that's how we set up a channel, save a channel, and copy a channel.